Well, hello there. I hope you're all doing well today. Finally, summer has arrived in Portugal. It was a very chilly June, and now that we're coming closer to July, it's starting to feel like summer. So there you go. Who can predict the weather these days? So what was I thinking through recently? Well, I'm having so much fun with my conspiracy-oriented friends, and they're nice people, they're good people, they're smart people, and they're sincere. And I don't mean to, sound critical or better than them or anything like that. It's easy to see why people would think conspiratorially these days because of all the noise in the information spheres around the world and all the platforms for storytellers that exist, like the one we're watching this on now, right? So there's a million people with opinions, and some opinions will get clicks, they'll get views and likes, and some opinions won't. I think opinions or ideas or conversations that are extremely nuanced, that don't have any answers, the kind of an open question remains open, unanswered, they're not going to get as many likes, as much attention as a piece that's, this is a bombshell, now we know, the government did this, Fauci lied, we have the cure, but nobody will use it because it's cheap and generic and easy to distribute and it's racist and whatever, So, those bombshell clickbait kind of posts and controversial conversations. Let's not shut down the conversation. Even when we're talking to somebody who's really, really way off the mark. I mean, way, way left field of the truth, or any semblance of truthiness, or any semblance of factualness. But we're going to talk to that person because that person is controversial and feeds a certain type of person that likes to go on the tubes and watch these kinds of things. And I've always thought that most of us want answers, right? So I'm going to go online to watch a gardening program to figure out how to prune tomatoes. I want an answer. And if the person telling me this says, well, there's 15 different varieties and they all need to be pruned differently and it depends on your strategy and it depends on the soil and your growing season and whether it's indeterminate or determinate and on and on and on. You're going to go, oh my God, it's complicated. I'm overwhelmed. I can't grow tomatoes. I'm just going to give up. Or maybe somebody just has a simple answer. If you have an indeterminate tomato and you're trying to figure out what suckers to take off of the main stem, do this. And it will help, So we got a question, we got an answer, we have a good answer, and boom, we're done. And I feel good. And I don't feel overwhelmed. I don't feel emotionally or intellectually taxed. So that's the kind of thing that we go online for. And in the world in which we live today, everything's much more nuanced, much more complex than it ever has been. And you have to cultivate a certain mindset that says, what I know now is provisional knowledge. I may think it's right today, but tomorrow I might not think it's right, and I'm comfortable with that. And I know there's complexity involved, and I know there's systems involved, and I know there's second, third order effects involved. So I'm going to defer my judgment and my desire for answers and just see how the story unfolds and try to make good decisions based on what I know now, the best of my knowledge at the moment, without getting it confused with thinking that it's the best answer possible, right? So already I've lost everybody. If you do it in a comedic way, and you have a punchline every few minutes or every 60 seconds, you'll get more likes and views and so on. But just thinking these through, I realize it's not that interesting, but to me it's interesting, so I'm going to share it anyway. So other ideas about this kind of way of seeing things is that, you know, if you think that what you're going to do or say, or like you're going to make a movie or write a book and it's going to change the world because, you know, the information is just so correct, it's so real, it's almost like an Einstein breakthrough or a Newtonian breakthrough, or, you know, a paradigm shifter, you know, a John Stuart Mill kind of thing, or pick a hero from any culture anywhere in the world. And wow, that changed everything. This changes everything. Naomi Klein's book. No, didn't. Believe all the different initiatives, all the different online manifestos and so on, they really haven't made a difference at all. So maybe incrementally or in some ways people are more aware of a certain thing, so they're talking about a certain thing more often, and maybe that's kind of shifting reality a little bit. But really it's just these narrative shifts that are happening, shifts in the story. And people are becoming aware of certain vocabulary or certain domains of interest or science or certain crises or whatever it is. And they're now getting familiar with it because it's been out there for a while. They can't avoid it, so they spend a little time, you know, learning about it, maybe picking up some vocabulary or something about a certain thing. And nothing really changes that much. And depending on what the risk profile is, you might want to make changes happen faster than slower, like with the climate problem we have. I mean, we really need all hands on deck, but I think most people think, forget about it. Who cares? I mean, that's 2100's problem. I got to get on with it. You know, I need my truck. We need fossil fuels for everything. So what are we talking about? Can we really get cheap, abundant alternative energy that can change the game a bit? And if we did, would it change anything? Because we're still consumers, we're still think that GDP, a certain kind of growth, is the only growth that matters. We're not really using our imaginations. And the reason we're not using our imaginations, I think, is that people just don't like to change. You spend all this time getting educated, learning skills, trades, professions, and you're just starting to do well and everything's going pretty good. You don't want to mess that up, right? It's like, hey, everything's going really good now. Why would I want to change anything? I've got a nice house, the kids are doing good, I'm having fun, there's lots of interesting entertainment in the world, I've got good friends. So why would I want to change it? You know, why would I want to sacrifice anything? I mean, it doesn't make any sense, does it? It doesn't seem rational to want to sacrifice anything. It's like when kids defer eating a cookie because they've been brought up that way. And there are downstream positive effects from that, but the kid at the moment has to be incredibly disciplined not to eat the cookie. So that's one thing. And then the other thing is we're all addicted to so many things. I mean, we have habits and addictions, and they're very difficult to change. You try to quit smoking, or you try to help your friend quit smoking, and they know it's bad, and there's nothing good can come from it, and it stinks, and it makes their breath foul, and it wrecks their body, and all this. But it's a beautiful habit. They're comfortable with it. They may have an addiction to nicotine, and you know, they're just not going to change. There's too much cognitive dissonance that comes forth when you try to think things through rationally. So, and we're addicted to so many things, and every day, because of the kind of marketing and the kind of economy we have now, it behooves corporations to utilize those addiction mechanisms in our brains and behaviors to make us do things, you know, for profit. How do you get out of that? You don't want to change, number one. It's really hard to fight an addiction, number two. And the whole economy is trying to get you addicted to stuff. What are you going to do? This is why I think that anyone with delusions of grandeur who thinks that their little initiative or book is going to change anything have delusions of grandeur. They're just slightly deluded. That doesn't mean you shouldn't write the book or the manifesto or have the movement or make a movie, documentary or whatever. It all contributes to knowledge and awareness of certain issues, certain things in life. It's all good. But, you know, to retrain a culture to defer gratification, to think in terms of long-term strategy, for sustainability, for our species, for life on Earth, for ecosystems, for ecology, and so on. To think in systems ways, and to think about complexity and nuance, and to have the, well, epistemological humility to admit that you don't know much, and that you have to rely on experts. And you have to rely on experts to explain their domain to you. You can't have a blogger or a astrologist tell you how, you know, brain surgery works. You actually need to talk to a brain surgeon. And if I were going to design a jet engine, I wouldn't go to a bicycle mechanic, even though he's a mechanic and he understands engineering. But it's different, isn't it? So we have to defer to expertise. We have to learn how to discover what we can trust. And with all of that evaporating, in favor of profit-making, almost like just profit-making for its own sake. You know, let's get rid of all these ideas that the profits actually do something good, like the Peter Thiel thing. The monopoly is a great thing because of this, that, and the other thing. When you're as smart as he is, you can rationalize any ridiculous argument. Let's all move to my floating city and we'll do things my way and you'll see just how good it's gonna be, you know? None of us are gonna pay any taxes. Well, we may not need taxes, but that would mean that we'd have to manage our resources better. And we'd have to distribute public goods better. And we'd have to think about the commons and other things that are really complicated. And people are going to school learning how not to think about any of that, right? And then when the Republican Party wants to shift something and take over again, they bring up race theory. You know, let's go back to race, because that's going to get the GOP back into power. Wow, you know, and then everybody just falls into it. You haven't read anything about any of it, critical race theory, ever. But suddenly you're an expert because your particular blogger or congressperson has an opinion on it. So we just take their opinion on because it sounds good to us. And we don't want to change. We don't want to challenge our own thinking. We don't want to question our beliefs. Oh, God forbid, you know, heresy, you know, the world's going to fall apart. So it's this kind of dogmatism and narrow-mindedness that really gets us into trouble. And I don't see that going away anytime soon. It's kind of like a core aspect of the human condition and human nature. Oh, I hate that term, human nature, because I think we are plastic. I think we can change things. I think culture does shift. I think paradigms do shift. I think there are phase transitions that can be extremely dramatic, socially, politically, and economically, not just in terms of physics. And, you know, change everything, but why should I care? I have a good life. I'm pretty comfortable with my own habits and addictions. You know, I'm comfortable with my own form of curiosity and exploration. So why should I change? Never change. Don't change. But unfortunately, a lot of us would have to embrace the change. And even if these are small things, you know, even if it's just recognizing that you know more today than you did yesterday because you put some effort into learning. Just a tiny little bit of change, but I know how to prune those suckers now. Maybe my tomato plants won't die after all. Maybe I can get my arms around this tomato growing thing. Everything's overwhelming once you start. So gardening is a trip. You live in big, huge cities with more than, 10 million people in them for 30 years. And then you move somewhere where you're gonna garden and farm maybe. And you realize, oh boy, that's a domain I don't know anything about. It's hard work. There's a steep learning curve there. And all I want to do is feed myself. Maybe I should just plant corn and potatoes. that would be easy. Maybe some onions just to spice things up a bit. Garlic's easy, but tomatoes, oh my God. But it's easy once you know how, right? But you have to put some time and energy into it, and you're thinking, oh man, I'm getting older. How much more time and energy do I have to learn anything? Yeah, so young people, stay curious, stay engaged, challenge yourself every single day. Wake up tomorrow feeling like you know something more than you did yesterday. Those incremental changes, and be honest with yourself. You don't know shit. So learn how to find an expert you can trust and avoid the ideologues, the dogmatic preachers, the blowhards, the YouTube talent that uses clickbait to get you to watch. Curb your addictions as best you can. Get help with that if you need it. And grow. Because life is just about growing until the telomeres shrink down so bad that it becomes about aging, and then if you don't lift weights, you're gonna die sooner. I learned that. Yeah, so that was kind of weird. Anyway, wake up tomorrow knowing a little bit more about this world and about yourself, your friends, your family than you did yesterday. That means you have to engage, you have to listen, you have to try to learn, you have to open your mind, you have to be there. Okay? That's it. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe, because it would be nice to have 5 or 10 or 20 people that I could engage with. And have a great day. Enjoy the summer. And if you're down under, enjoy the winter. Bouliam tea, out.